I just want to tell people that like what we do is extremely thoughtful and it's not frivolous.
Hi, and welcome to Fem Study, a podcast about fem art, theory, and culture. I'm your host, Jillian Hernandez, and today our topic is femininity and abolition. Our guest is Gloria Negrete-Lopez, an exciting scholar who I will introduce in the episode. We discuss how they have navigated stereotypes about femmes in academia and social justice spaces, beauty practices for big girls, and what some of her makeup staples are. Femininity and abolition, the movement to end the violence perpetrated by carceral institutions, is nothing new. Femme figures like Angela Davis and Assata Shakur have been at the forefront of critiques of the U.S. carceral system. And that tradition has continued with the work of femmes like Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Rivera, Nicole Fleetwood, and Tourmaline. While femme practices of bodily adornment may seem apolitical, femme of color abolitionists have understood them as expressions of bodily autonomy that are at the heart of our freedom struggles. I edited this episode right as City Girls JT dropped her new single, No Bars, which references her experiences of incarceration. JT launched a website along with the single, nobarsreform.com, with resources to assist formerly incarcerated women, continuing in the tradition of Black femme-led abolition. In the description below, I'm listing some of my favorite abolitionist texts, among which is The Color Pink, Black Femme Art for Survival by Omaseka Natasha Tinsley. It discusses how Black femme aesthetics arose to confront misogynoir, anti-trans politics, and mass incarceration in the wake of the Trump era, and is a super inspiring read. Remember to support this independent podcast by sharing, liking, and subscribing. And now, let's get into the episode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Fem Study. We are a series that is for and by femmes. We're studying femme culture and all the richness that it brings to our lives. Today, I am really excited to have Gloria Negrete-Lopez with us. She is an assistant professor of women's and gender studies at West Virginia University. She holds a PhD in gender and women's studies with a minor in Mexican American studies from the University of Arizona. Interdisciplinary in scope, her research, teaching, and creative work focuses on gender and feminist studies, abolitionist thought and practice, Latinx studies, migration studies, and new media studies. Gloria's research examines the important role of art and cultural work in disrupting dominant legal narratives of migrant criminality. She is currently working on a book project that analyzes the artistic and cultural work of migration activists and artists who use their work to create spaces of knowledge-making, co-creativity, and feminist praxis. So welcome, Gloria. Thank you for being here with me today. And, I love to study you as a femme, one, because your makeup is always on point. You're always sharing what products you're using with me. I remember one of the first times we hung out, you talked a lot about the Sweet Street Cosmetics lip gloss, which maybe we'll talk more about later. And because you do work that brings not only a feminist lens to the question of abolition, a feminist of color lens, but some of the work of yours that I first learned about was these abolitionist feminists that were using really cool bodysuits and fashion as a tool for promoting abolition, which I thought was so cool. So can you talk to us maybe a little bit more informally of how maybe femininity plays a role in your scholarship, and then we'll get into more of a role it plays in your personal life.
Yeah, so I think for me, first and foremost, I'm so excited to be here, number one. So when I think about sort of femininity and feminists, right? I think a lot about how often, these sort of gender expressions are seen as suspect, as suspicious, as not really being something that is intentional, that is thoughtful, right? It's it's very frivolous, or makeup on is very frivolous, or it's this or it's that, right? And so for me, like and I think also for many like women of color, you know, in order to be taken like seriously sometimes, right? It's like you have to put on this certain like a mask, right, to sort of go out there into a world that is white supremacist, right, that is xenophobic, that is fat phobic. And so for me, I really saw like femininity as being something that is a space of like knowledge making, a space of I always want my work, like for folks who see femmes as being frivolous and not being serious about their work. That's the kind of sort of mentality that I want to demystify, and saying, actually, we really think about this a lot, incessively sometimes.
Right.
There's a certain level of protection that we do when we put something like this on, right? So for me, I remember being in grad school, and there was I was on Instagram, and reading about abolition for a long time. I just kept seeing a lot of like abolitionist organizing was like they weren't necessarily talking about aesthetics. They weren't talking about how you put things on your body to sort of show your political stance, but also like how are we femmes sort of taking up abolition in our clothing. And I kept saying, I really want to study this bodysuit. And every time I would say I want to study this bodysuit, I was told, maybe not. Like, I don't think it's for your dissertation. I don't think so. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to write a paper. I'm going to write something that is going to show you why this bodysuit and why this work is important. I was like, I just want to tell people that like what we do is extremely thoughtful and it's not frivolous. And that's
right.
like, why I started doing some of this work in like academia, or in my academic side, is like, this is my passion project. Like, being on blogs, writing, like I used to have a little blog back in the day, in the aughts, back in the aughts.
Yes.
And I grew up in that culture. And the reason that I let go of that blog, of, me working on that blog, was academia. But when I would think about, what I would wear, my outfits, and when I would go to certain spaces, I was seen as like suspect, as not being serious about abolition. And so that's where this all started. All of this.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. And I think there's ways too, because I write about femininity and popular culture. My work has also suffered from that same kind of thing of like, oh, it's not really political, right? It's this way in which like femininity and politics are seen as mutually exclusive, because I also think femininity and femme ritual is seen as colluding with capitalism, right? As consumption. And what people forget is like for many of us femmes, like consumption can be creative, and that for many of us, consumption is one of the few ways that we had access to being in the public. Like that's such an important part of how we even are able to move through the world, whether for good or for bad. Like no one here is writing for capitalism, but all that to say, like, if that is a way that as femmes we have been, sort of socialized to move through the world, then what are ways that we can activate the power of so-called beauty, or like bodily adornment, of makeup, right, of fashion, to move culture in different ways. So can you talk a little bit about the bodysuit that you mentioned?
So the bodysuit was created by this collective of comrades, homies, of folks who were in the migrant justice movement, who were in the nonprofit life, and they saw the popularity of the hashtag Abolish ICE. And so
Mm-hmm.
popularity, they decided to say, actually, abolish ICE isn't just about getting rid of one institution of policing and surveillance in the US, right? This is about a larger systemic understanding of all that comes into place, because if you get rid of ICE, something else will also sort of be brought up in its place. So
Mm-hmm.
bodysuit as a way to say, when we say abolish ICE, we also mean abolish prisons, abolish DHS, abolish the nation state, and then they end with hashtag defend the criminalized, right? And so it's this amazing bodysuit that has a screen print that goes through all the different their sort of political ideology, and saying abolish ICE doesn't just mean getting rid of one, like one institution, or
Mm-hmm.
it's about getting rid of the Department of Homeland Security. It's also getting rid of prisons. It's also getting rid of, abolishing poverty. It's also about, defending folks who are criminalized. And they released a statement that said, our affinities lie with working class, Black, disabled folks who are considered, they use the term like illegals, former border crossers. And so, and one of these folks created an Instagram called Thoughty Organizer.
Oh my God. I love it.
Play on words, right? Thoughty. But instead of THOT, it was thought. And then with
Mm-hmm.
end, right? So Thoughty Organizer. And they came out with that bodysuit, and they also had a tube top that said "Melt Ice, Burn Prisons." They had booty shorts that said, "Abolish ICE." They had they created, very, very sort of in a working class backyard, they created this apparel that was abolitionist, that was meant to create a propaganda of abolition. They wanted that stuff out there. And so this is why this bodysuit is so important, but also, they're not active on Instagram anymore, right? Because
Mm.
what happens with, there's burnout, and there's only a
Yes.
certain femmes and certain folks of color are the ones that are doing all the labor. But
Yes.
because, once I published that piece, I've talked about it, and people are like, where can we get this? And I'm like, well, you can't. And that's part of the beauty of it, right? Is that it was there for a moment, and it was
Mm-hmm.
a particular moment in time when folks in the migrant justice movement were really being challenged to really think about like abolition in a much more comprehensive way. The one homie that I was in contact with, my comrade, who's amazing, Ana Karen, like she's one of those folks she's one of the baddies that I like to follow, who I love her style, very sort of LA, sort of sneaker culture, working class culture, but also just amazing sort of work that she does and that she's invested in.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think also it's like the ephemerality, right? The fact that like this bodysuit or this activism might not be around forever. And sometimes people see that as a negative, but it's also the reality of like, especially for femmes who tend to do so much care work, especially femmes of color who do so much care work, both in their domestic lives and in the community. There's only so much that you can give, but the beauty of you writing about it is that it gives it another life. And it also might inspire other people. Like, what bodysuit or other garment or other practice might you create now that you know that this is out there and that this is possible? So I love that. This series is called Fem Study. So my question, and you already talked about that a little bit, but what other femmes do you study? Who are some of your favorite femmes that inspire you?
That is a great question. So I think for me, like some of the earliest femmes that I said, I think some of the earliest femmes that I studied, of course, like growing up in, the sort of the 90s, I got to see like, especially one of my tias, my tia Tete,
Shout out, Auntie. What's
shout
up?
out my tia Tete,
Yes.
because she is, I just remember her style. I just remember her always having red lipstick, was like, she had every color Doc Martin in the 90s.
Ooh.
She was just like, and just to see that practice, like my mom didn't necessarily wear lots of makeup, but my mom was a great seamstress. So like if I had an idea for something, homegirl would execute.
Mm-hmm.
So there, I started to see like, oh yeah, like you can make certain things, right? You can adjust things, you can like make things a particular way. And so I really, now as an adult, like I thrift a lot of my things. And so I'm really inspired by the folks in my life, the folks that I come across. I think for many, right, we're fed this idea that Vogue and magazines like that are like, oh, this is what you should,
Right.
these are the looks and the outfits you should try to pull together. And and I'm sure folks have written about this, but this is why I think the sort of blogging, the fashion blogging of the 2000s is so important, because as a young person, that's where I was able to see like, oh yeah, like Vogue is no longer relevant. And
Right.
are these folks who are who are creating their own looks, shooting it themselves, creating their look and uploading and telling us what each thing is. And it's more accessible than, a Louis Vuitton $5,000 purse that I'm never going to be able to afford, versus, this blogger who, starts thrifting vintage Dooney and Burke bags that then led me down the path of, I only wanted to collect, Dooney and Burke or Coach or whatever, right? So
Right.
and so, yeah, I get inspiration from like everyone around me. Of course, Selena Quintanilla is a big one.
Yes.
I was one of those
Huge.
people that got up at like 3 a.m. to go to the Mac store to buy the Selena makeup. Okay.
Do you still have it? Those are like, that's like
I
memorabilia, right?
do.
That's like archival object.
I even have a brush that I bought from the collection that I have never used. The bronzer, I still have like the emblem of Selena still on there. Like I haven't
You're like, I haven't used it enough to like erase
used
the Selena.
so,
Right.
and I have a Selena Barbie back there, but the sort of the makeup, it's like there's certain looks that I still to this day try to recreate. That I love, like, and little details that I know about. So for example, like Selena's favorite red lipstick was Chanel, but it's no longer made. You can never
Oh, I
find it.
didn't know that.
So people, like, and this is, people always assume like, oh, she wore it's like, no, homie, like that color is no longer in existence. Like it is,
Mm.
that's part of, that's the kind of weird stuff that I know that I'm just like,
But you see, that's what I call fem study, right? Because it's like it is a practice of knowledge, and even the like going down the rabbit hole of like the Dooney and Burke like vintage collecting. And it's funny because I totally understand and share the view that like these practices are not frivolous and that they are thoughtful, but I also want to make space for the frivolousness too, and to say that like it's totally fine sometimes that when we're doing this, like we're not working or thinking in a particular way, right? That like they also just bring joy to our lives. Like, finding out, like researching what color red lipstick is, that Selena wore, like that is both a practice of study. And I'm definitely inspired by Fred Moten and Stefano Harney, right, who think about study in this like very expansive type of way. Study is what we engage in and what we do every day, right? We're making observations and we're learning from those observations or from connections with others. But for me, like that kind of practice that you describe is very much both, right? It's a practice that is at once kind of, you know, you're doing research on this like important cultural figure for us, but it's also fun at the same time, right?
It is, you know, it is fun. And it's also like, you know, it's like it's also about like building community and connection, right? It's like
Absolutely.
being, you know, like standing outside of the Mac store at 4 a.m, like I talked with other folks. Like I remember, you know, like having, you know, one of my besties, Juan, also come out, not because they wear the makeup, but because they wanted to buy it for the femmes in their life.
Exactly.
And so, you know, like I have all types of references. So whether it's, you know, whether it's like Selena in the sort of 90s looks and my tia, or, you know, a blogger that I followed forever, Nadia Abul Hassan. I look to curvy women. I look to women who use the label and term fat, you know, who use, you know, whether it's curvy, whether it's plus size, whether it's fat. Like I also think that there's something about looking to how bigger bodies take things and reinterpret things and what we do with things that, you know, people with smaller bodies don't necessarily have to deal with. So but for me, it's a little bit about just being inspired by folks around me and by friends and by like bigger bodied people, and see what you're able to do, even though you know, we're living in a world where we're not necessarily being catered to at all, right? Like our bigger bodies are read in a particular way as excessive,
right?
And not necessarily sort of seen in a particular way. And it's like, yeah, like fat bodies are also beautiful and can also be frivolous and can be cute and can wear things. And so for us, we have to be a little bit more creative of how we wear them, because things aren't necessarily marketed.
They're not made for, exactly. And how to turn that into like a creative practice, right? Just like when, you know, not that long ago, like there weren't foundation shades that were, you know, dark enough for many people. And so like, you know, femmes figuring out how to create that. Like my friend Kenya recently has been sending me TikToks. I have to put the person in the description. I don't know if you've seen her, but she's a Black woman who shares tips on how she learned how to make makeup while she was incarcerated.
I did 17 years in prison. I'm gonna show y'all how to make some prison makeup. All right, so this is like flour, cake mix, powdered sugar, whatever you want to use.
She like figured out how to make foundation. She figured out how to make lashes, right? And so like there's all these ways, again, right? Like the kind of ingenuity and creativity that comes into it. And the fact that like femmes do put all this time and energy into this tells you that there's something significant going on there, right?
Or even like that, but also like home remedies that you learn that get passed down, right? Like I remember growing up and seeing, you know, like the femmes in my life use like a spoon as like an eyelash curler, right? Like the spoon that I was never able to do, but it's about, you know, like you put a metal spoon, and you kind of like sort of do that as a, you know, if you don't have a curling iron, that's what I mean, a eyelash curler,
right?
Or, you know, like my mom, she would boil flaxseed or linaza, and it becomes this gooey substance, and would put it on my hair as a kid, put my hair in curlers, and then I would have like curly hair for like 3 or 4 days that wasn't subjected to like heat damage, like little things like that
I love that. Exactly. That's a great segue for my next question, which is, what are some of your favorite beauty products or beauty secrets that you would like other femmes to know?
Oh my God. Well, I think you already said one of them, which is the Sweet Street Cosmetics. I am obsessed with their eyeliner. It stays on. Listen, I'm a big girl. I sweat a lot. This will not come off. Like this.
I need that for this Florida heat. Like, I need that.
I teach, I wear a mask because I don't trust any of my students. I tell them I don't trust y'all to keep me healthy because I got asthma. But when I put on my mask, and all day of teaching, this eyeliner is still right where I left it. Like it's I don't know what they did to this formula, but it's magical. It's $20, and during the holiday, like I'm sure they have like a 4th of July, any holiday, they'll have these like 20% or 40% off or whatever.
And then you stock up.
Yeah, like I did, I stocked up. I really love supporting a lot of like women of color owned cosmetics. So, I love Sweet Street. Like that's what I'm wearing right now in their eyeshadow too.
Ooh, the eyeshadow is lovely. That's them too. Nice. That's like the LA palette, or what is it called?
It's a beautiful package.
Sunset? I don't know, something like that. What is it called?
Eyeshadow. It's like LA Lady, and it's this really
so cute
palette. I'm not going to show you inside because some of it is broken. So I'm like,
look, if other femmes are watching, they will not be offended. They will know what's up.
It's like some of us know that like when you travel or when you drop
things
stuff,
happen.
And I'm on that scarcity model, is that I'm not going to buy another one. I'm going to keep it until there's no more.
That's smart, because we need our coin to buy other makeup.
So I'm also wearing Fenty. My foundation is Fenty. I love Rihanna's line. Like their Fenty products.
Yes. Shout out Priscilla Ono. Amazing. Also big girl. Also big girl. From Round the Way back in the day. Yes. Shout out.
Like she's one of the baddies that I follow. Like some of her outfits, I'm just like,
no, I'm obsessed. I'm also obsessed with her little like travel videos. Do you know where she shows you like what she packs in her bag? I'm like, ooh, like lavender wipes and eucalyptus wipes, and yes.
The fact that she has like all, like everything is Fenty, and I love it. I love it. And so I love, Fenty, the Sweet Street stuff. And then, like I like my high-end makeup, like I like to sort of, I like to spend a little money and look nice. And so everything else is from, I buy the Sephora brand. I also love, like the Naked concealer I really love. So
okay, that's good to know. I'm obsessed with concealers and trying concealers. Like because I do have very dark circles. Right now I'm wearing the Dominique Cosmetics one, which I'm obsessed with. I don't know if you know her, but she's a Latina yeah, she's Latina, and she has her own line. She puts like makeup. She was like a makeup YouTuber for a long time, and she still does. But I have more concealers than I need. But to me, it's like a good concealer is like, that's your best friend. To me, concealer setting powder, obsessed. So your beat looks flawless. So can I ask about what setting powder you use? Because I can tell you're using a bomb ass setting powder.
I use Laura Mercier.
Okay, word.
Like I have a Laura Mercier under eye. So it's an under eye brightening setting powder. And
what?
It is,
I didn't even know that existed. I need to find that. I use Huda under my eye, like the banana bread, and I let it bake for a minute.
This is how close I am. So I'm like, I have all my stuff here. So it looks like, it's Yeah, it's the secret brightening powder for under eye. And it looks
Okay.
like this. And it just like it helps
I
with,
can tell your under eyes look all flawless. The
yes.
lip you have on now is a beautiful color. What's that?
You. This is I know she's a problematic fave, is a Kat Von D's.
That's okay. She doesn't even own it anymore, so it's
I
all good.
I
Yeah.
um her Lolita lipstick. Oh my God. Lolita 1, Lolita 2. Listen, I've gone through like 4 of those Lolita,
Are they
like,
red? What's the color of
so
those?
it's kind of like a mauve sort of.
Mm-hmm. I love that kind of, that's what I like about your lip color. It's like that purpley mauve that I think goes well with our kind of skin tone. Like I feel that.
So see, and this is Lolita 2, which is a little like you
A
can't
little
really
more berry, a little peachy.
that. It's a little bit more berry, more peachy, but it's still, it's like the same. They're part of like the same little like familia. And
Mm-hmm.
oh, and then this other color, Cathedral. Oh my God. But these two, these are some of my favorite. And I think this one's like a cream one, so it's not yeah, it's a lip cream. So it's very like soft, like hydrating. But normally I like me a good matte lip. So the Sweet Street Cosmetics and the Kat Von D, they're like her matte lipsticks as well as Sweet Street's matte lipsticks. I'm obsessed with. Like they don't go anywhere, they won't move, they'll stay just where they're at. Rihanna's red lip is Fenty Beauty one is also amazing, but it can get a little bit
I
bit.
know. I've had that one, like the one that you kind of paint on. Yeah, you need to be like in a very specific situation. But it's funny that you're reminding me of masks because I think that was one moment when you realize that femininity is no joke. Like I, peak COVID, like my masks were always like stained because I would still wear lipstick and people would be like, "Why are you still wearing lipstick?" I'm like, it's just, and so like it's clear it's not even for anyone to see, but it's like such a part of my own, right, like self-image and like just a ritual. Like at this point it's a ritual. I can't do without it.
Exactly. It's a ritual. It's like a getting ready ritual. And I love, like even just getting ready today, like I had to put on, I was like, I need music. I need like 90s sort of girl group, sort of hip hop R&B sort of in the back. So, put on some TLC. Like I need that kind of vibes to help, to hype me up, to help me get ready, to put me in a particular frame of mind, right? Because it's also about like the ambiance, right? Of getting ready. And I take forever. Like I want to take my time. I don't but for
Absolutely.
me, getting ready is also about getting the right accessories. Like my hoops, I bought these in 2012. This is what my tax return money went to.
They're
in,
beautiful.
in 2011, sorry, 2011, 2010. And it's like, they're crooked now because I've worn them so much. And because I told myself, do I want to keep wearing fake hoops that are going to like mess up my ears, or do I want to invest some, a little oro, a little,
Yeah.
to the swap me, like bought them, like it's all that stuff, right? That comes into the look and getting ready and all of that. It's like the right hoops, the right accessory, the right lipstick, the outfit, everything.
Yeah, and I think it's also something like what's important about it is that I think it also says something, even though we're not intending it explicitly in that way, but I think buying yourself the hoops or taking the time, that the older I get, I realize how precious time is. It says something about how you value yourself. It's kind of saying to yourself, like, I deserve these hoops, right? Or like, I am worthy of taking this time to put myself together. And yeah, like when I'm also getting ready, it's like almost like a meditation time, or it's a time to like listen to a podcast or YouTube. It's like it's my time, right? And I think for femmes of color, like we often have to fight for that kind of time. We're often like our time is often spoken for in terms of labor, in terms of care work and all of that kind of stuff, for sure. So any last things you want to share? You kind of touched on it a little bit, but like what sort of self-adornment like brings to your life? Anything else you want to maybe share about that before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think, I guess maybe I got a little ahead of myself with my hoops.
No, you were perfect.
Like my hoops are what, I have baby hoops for every day, like that I don't take off. I've always had, like, since I was a kid, I have pictures of myself where I was that kid that had like 2 necklaces on, a bracelet, of like 3 rings on each finger. Like that's the kind of
I love that. Yes.
excessiveness that I grew up with because, my dad loved gold jewelry, loved it. Like that fool had gold rings. He had this beautiful gold cross necklace. My mom, that's one of the things that my mom taught me about, what you said about valuing yourself. Like my mom worked at a electronics company for like 25 years. And every once in a while, I remember going to the mall with her and she would save up money to buy herself like these gorgeous like ruby rings that at that time they were like $600, which is a lot of money. But so I grew up like knowing that, you save a little money and you buy yourself like jewelry. And so that's something that my mom and my parents instilled in me. And so I'm wearing my dad's ring with on me. It's one of my favorite gold rings, like my gold hoops, and this necklace. I bought it when I went to visit my mom's hometown of Uzmahac, Jalisco, and went to this town called Ciudad Guzman, and there was a jewelry maker, and they had all these nameplates, and I was like, I've always wanted a nameplate, and so I had a custom made, and so
It's beautiful.
noticed, but I put it on in the front.
Oh, I love that actually.
I had them put the clasp in the front right by my name so that I can put it on super fast, super easy, and not have to worry about like,
I know. I struggle with that. That's a big reason I don't wear jewelry. That's one thing. Like I need more tattoos because it's hard for me to wear jewelry. So that is beautiful. That necklace is gorgeous.
I think like, it's beautiful, like, and it's really heavy. I actually ripped it not too long ago and I had to have it fixed out here in West Virginia. And so when they fixed it, the person was like, "Oh, that's like really nice," and da, da, da. And I'm like, "Well,
I got it in Mexico, just so you know.
Mexican gold,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is one of my fondest memories of Mexico, is like getting this done." And so for me, like a good pair of hoops, like if you're someone who loves to wear earrings, and if you're someone, like, I would definitely suggest like investing in a really nice pair of hoops.
Perfect. Well, Gloria, it has been such a pleasure to chat with you today. Thank you so much. And I'll be sure to link some of your references down below. But thank you so much for sharing all of your beautiful knowledge with us.
Thank you.